94.3 The Dude is very grateful to our men and women in uniform. We're proud to recognize local members of our military by turning the spotlight on them right now in our Soldier Salute.
I'm your host, United States Marine Corps veteran Ethan Stitch Gardner, and on today's Soldier Salute, I have my first call-in guest, vocalist and keyboard player for Grammy-nominated Confederate Railroad and retired United States Army Command Sergeant Major Joey Recker. Sergeant Major, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for your service. I got you on the phone today. 28 and a half years in the United States Army. Great to have you on. Tell me the meat and potatoes of your story and why you decided to join the United States Army.
Well, I joined in 1985 as a member of the Georgia Army National Guard after going to college. I graduated high school in 82, went straight to college as a music major. Had dreams of being a rock star, I guess. Towards the end of college, nobody was signing up to make me the rock star that I always dreamed of being. So, of course, I had a wife and child on the way and knew I needed to support my family. I'd love to sit here and tell you great stories about how patriotic I was and immediately joined because I wanted to serve my country. But truth is, I joined because I needed to make a couple dollars. At the end of college, I went to do student teaching because I figured, well, I can fall back and become a music teacher somewhere. After just a few days of student teaching, I realized that I did not want to be a teacher. I had a lot of respect for teachers, but I realized that was not going to be my chosen career path.
Weren't ready to deal with all those kids.
That's exactly right. And I had a brother who was a recruiter, so just on wild hair, I called him up and I said, hey, man, sign me up. And he said, you're not good enough to be in the military. You're not in good enough shape. You can't handle this. Hung up on me. I started running and doing push-ups and trying to get in shape. A little while later, I went back to him. Still needed to find some work, but eventually he did sign me up. I became a member of the Georgia Army National Guard as a part-time soldier in 1985. Went off to my basic and AIT. Came home, and within my first year, I was selected for the AGR program, Active Guard Reserve Program, a full-time soldier. Spent the next 28 and a half years working in administration at first, and then went into training, and then leadership roles after that. So had a great career.
You're the vocalist and keyboard player for the Grammy-nominated Confederate Railroad. I remember sitting on my dad's knee listening to you guys play when I was a kid. It's such an honor to have you on. You're one of the newest members of the band. You started in 2017. Tell me what the road has been like so far, being a part of such an awesome group of guys.
It has been amazing. I had the privilege many years ago in local hometown bands to open up for Confederate Railroad twice. And just like you, grew up listening to their music, covered a lot of their songs with local bands over the years. Never, ever dreamed that I would ever have the opportunity to be on the big stage and playing with a national band of their caliber. But I had already retired from the military and was doing local shows, always loved to play, and started doing a lot of local shows after retirement. Got the opportunity one night. Mo, bass player, walked in and sat in with me that night and asked if I'd ever be interested in touring. I told him I definitely would. Didn't think that would go anywhere. Within a week, I got the call to ask me if I wanted to come join him on tour. Of course, I jumped at the opportunity and went on out. I'll tell you this, when I got ready to go, my family asked me, they said, hey, you're 52 years old. Are you really going to do this? And I said, I got to go try. I got to go see if I'm good enough. It's always been my dream to go out and do this. So, yes, I'm going to go do this. But at this point in my life, I'm not so wrapped up in the idea of doing this that if these aren't good folks, if these aren't nice guys, then I'll come back home. If it's not what I thought it was going to be, if it's not fun, then I'll come back home. I'm not just so wrapped up in this at this point in my life that I have to do it at all costs. I came home from the first weekend out, and they asked me how it was, and I said, I feel like I just met my new family. Danny, lead singer, founding member. Mark, founding member, drummer. Mo and Rusty, who've been with them for a number of years. Everybody, it was really just like I met a brand new family. And I came home after that first weekend, and I said, if they will have me, I want it. And my second weekend out, Danny called me to the back of the bus and offered me a permanent position with the band. And been with them since January 2017 and having the time of my life. Couldn't ask for a better bunch of guys.
Sergeant Major, you were in the 48th Infantry Brigade. You had a pretty awesome opportunity. You came up as a private in that brigade, and 28 years later, you were the command sergeant major for that same unit. What is that experience like?
It's pretty amazing. I mean, I know that, especially on active duty, that never happens, and it even rarely happens in the National Guard, especially nowadays. People move around a lot for different positions and for promotions. Got in as a PFC because I had college behind me already, so did get to come in as a private first class, basic AIT, got that full-time job finally in the AGR program, and started off as a unit clerk, administration, did that for a number of years, and then finally broke into training, made it through staff sergeant, went off to Master Gunner School. I was a Bradley Fighting Vehicle Master Gunner. Graduated that school at Fort Benning, one of the hardest schools I ever went to. If you lose a soldier in combat and you've been with that unit for 28 years, you know their kids. You know their dog's name. You know everything about him. You know where he lives. And when you come home from a combat tour and you've lost a soldier, well, you got to walk by his family in the local Walmart for the rest of your life, knowing that you didn't bring him home. And that's really significant emotionally. I think that it's something that a lot of people don't experience in the situation I was in growing up in the same brigade. All military service is a family, but so much more so in the situation I was in. It makes you really look out for each other and care about each other, just like every soldier does, but I think to a much higher degree.
Sergeant Major, thanks for being here. Thanks for your service. Our service members in the Guard, they are not immune to the loss of friends in combat. I understand it that while you were in the 1st of the 108th Cavalry of the 48th Infantry Brigade, your unit lost 8 men in Afghanistan from June to September of 2009. One of those men was Major Kevin Jenrette, who you spoke with me earlier saying was one of the finest officers that you had ever met. Can you tell us a little bit about that time in Afghanistan and the losses that you guys experienced?
I was the Command Sergeant Major for the 1st of the 108th Cavalry during our tour in Afghanistan. Major J, that's what we all called him, Major Jenrette. Just physically a stud, just one of the best leaders, a wonderful guy. He was the executive officer for the squadron. So the commander at the time, Lieutenant Colonel Simmons, Major J, myself, and the S3, who was a guy named Major McDonald. The 4 of us spent a lot of time together. We always were in quarters together during the train up to go overseas. Of course, we were very, very close. I can remember Major J, we'd get up and do PT every morning like good soldiers and troopers do. Major J would have already gone out and run miles and miles and miles before we even thought about getting up at 5:30 in the morning. I remember him coming back into our little hooch there as we were getting ready to go. He'd always come in playing Fat Bottom Girls on the radio to tell the rest of us to get out of bed and come run a few more miles with him. As the executive officer, he was not supposed to be out on the battlefield. His job was to stay back and run the headquarters while the commander and I, the command team, was out on the battlefield where we were needed. He came to us, Colonel Simmons and I, early in the deployment and just begged us to let him get out there, and had some extra people. They plus us up a little bit before we go overseas, and just a little bit of time in country, we made a swap, and we sent him out on a team with some battle space so that he would get some of the experience out there. I remember the day before he left to go out there, Major J went and had little 108th Cavalry logos embroidered, and he would go around giving them to people and stick them on a little piece of Velcro that was under your collar. Just a unit pride thing, and he started doing. And he'd walk up to you and he'd give you one, and then he'd walk up to you and flip up your collar later on. If you wasn't wearing it, he'd punch you in the chest real good. The day before he left, he had just started doing that, and he walked up to me and said, "Hey, Sergeant Major, let me give you one of these." And he stuck one under my collar and punched me in the chest real hard. And that was the last conversation I had with him. He stuck that on there. I can tell you to this day, I gave away or got rid of every uniform I have except for that one. I still got the 108 thing underneath the collar hanging in my closet. That was the last time I spoke to Major J. You know, I can't go on enough about what a great guy he was, and it was a big blow to the unit for everybody. All 8 of the soldiers we lost, but the impact that Major J had was huge. We had to buck up, we had to get back out on the battlefield, keep doing what Major J would have had us do, and that was go take the fight to the enemy. And that's what we did. Overall, had a really good tour and had a lot of successes on the battlefield, and a lot of it was because of the example that Major J gave us and us trying to honor his sacrifice through all of our action.
Sergeant Major, I love when veterans get out of the service and they continue giving back to the community with nonprofit actions and things of that nature. Tell me about the nonprofit that you hold so dear to your heart, MVP, Merging Vets and Players.
Merging Vets and Players, MVP, is a nonprofit organization. They match up combat veterans and former professional athletes, and we get the opportunity to work together after the uniform comes off. You know, whichever kind of uniform it is, gives each one of us, the players and the veteran, a new team. to help us tackle the transition from being on that team to no longer being on that team. And, just MVP shows the player and the veteran that you're not alone. You got a new team, and that new team is MVP. MVP was started off by Jay Glazer and Nate Boyer. Those are names that can look up on the internet and see a lot of history with those guys. Nate Boyer is a U.S. Army Green Beret veteran and also a former NFL athlete. He played with the Seattle Seahawks. He experienced both worlds, and Jay Glazer is trainer to the NFL. What we do is we show up. I go to Smyrna, Georgia, to meet Wednesday nights. We start off some world-class athletes. Eddie Walker is a six-time NFC MMA champion. Manu is a four-time world kickbox champion. And they train us in MMA fighting techniques, and we get in there and we sweat. And they have a team of trainers. There's Corey, there's Brandy, there's all kind of great folks in there that are just world-class athletes that put us through the paces, and we sweat. You build bonds with other human beings through sweat, blood, and tears, and we go in there and I think probably shed all three on the mat at the training facility. Get really close, and our motto is, I've got your back. Everybody in there has each other's back, no matter what's going on in their life. It's a very safe environment where it's not safe when you get on the mat sometimes, but when you sit down and talk about things that may be going in your life, it's not going to leave the room. You're not going to be judged. Everybody in the room is on your team, and they got your back. You feel free to talk about anything and share it, and you just walk out of there feeling really good. It's amazing how an NFL player, you think, man, he's got it made. He probably made a bunch of money. He's got this great career. But on the other hand, he's probably been wearing a uniform since he played pee-wee football when he was 6 years old. And then all of a sudden, takes that uniform off, and he experiences same issues with transition that a veteran does. And he misses that team, and it's been great. They have one now out in California, in Los Angeles. There's one in Chicago, and there's the one in Atlanta. Their goal is to one day have an MVP chapter in every NFL city across the nation. It's growing rapidly. It's a great program.
You're the recipient of the Georgia Medal of Valor. Can you tell us a little bit about the actions that awarded you that medal?
That's one that I'm real proud of. In 1994, Southwest Georgia experienced severe floods from Tropical Storm Alberto. If you can remember back, it came in off the coast, and then it stalled, and it just dropped. I think it was like 11 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. Washed out bridges, washed out roads. It was just devastating to our local area. I worked in Albany, Georgia at the time. Got a call in the middle of the night to report into the Armory, and I did, and we loaded up our Humvees. And I knew it was raining, but I had no idea it was fixing to be that bad. We took off and rode down to Americus, Georgia, which is my hometown, and led a team down there. We left in 4 Humvees, and I ended up making it to Americus with no Humvee, walked to the National Guard Armory. We lost all those Humvees along the way. Floodwaters. I was personally washed off of a bridge in the Humvee and was able to escape. There was a lady, her name is Becky. She still works here in my hometown at a local hardware store. I see her all the time. She was washed off of a road and in a horrible accident, clinging to life. Me and about 6 other guys at various stages along the way were trying to get her to Americus, to the hospital, so that she could be cared for. But the whole city of Americus was cut off. Americus kind of sits on a hill, and there's bridges all the way around the town, and we couldn't get into town. And so we finally had to just take a chance and drive across the bridge and hope that the bridge was still there. But in the process of that, we were able to get her to the other side to a waiting ambulance and got her to the hospital and was able to save her life. Me and 6 or 7 other guys that were all a part of that action were awarded the Georgia Medal of Valor by the governor of the state of Georgia. Of all the awards that I've received over the years, it's probably one of the most meaningful and one that I'm most proud of and happy that I was in the right place at the right time.
Thanks for joining us in our Soldier Salute, presented by Little Pig's Barbecue, serving Columbia since 1963 with that bodacious buffet. And Palmetto State Armory, American made for life. And Franklin Equipment, rent, buy, rely. And Atkins Law Firm Workers' Comp Attorneys, who you hire matters.